Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Over the weekend, we saw two very large low-pressure systems that hit a big chunk of North America here, producing some very heavy rain. Most of the news attention was on the very large one that came into the northwest. I'm going to show you that in a few seconds, but just take a look at these rainfall totals over here in parts of California. Many locations went off my color bar, meaning they went over 10 inches. I'll come back to that in a second. We also had another event that came right through the Midwest here, and this is just a continue to put the stop on harvest right through the I-states here, as we've had some very, very wet weather. I live right about here in Illinois, and I'm looking out in my front yard right now and just seeing standing water. We had over 3 inches of rainfall right here in this particular area. Now, because the action was in the Midwest and in the West, we actually saw mostly a dry weekend. There were scattered storms right along the coast here, but much of the rest of North Carolina through the Mid-Atlantic was dry. Now, just thinking about all this, I'm going to give you some stats here. This would be month-to-date precipitation ranks by climate district. And while much of the Mid-Atlantic through the Carolinas are going to remember October as being a drier month, you can see here some of the ranks in the 80s, 90s, even approaching 100. That would be, 129 would be the driest. All the action has been here in the Midwest. It's been in the northern plains, and then most recently here along the west coast. And the deeper troughs that continue to form in the Gulf of Alaska that just kind of send their momentum through like this have largely missed our area, and therefore we're lagging behind on total precipitation. And those deep systems, they look something like this. Now, you may have heard over the weekend, let me get you back to where you can see it. There it is. You may have heard over the weekend on several news media outlets that they were calling this a bomb cyclone. That's actually a meteorological term. That deep low pressure center that you see here actually got down to 942 millibars. Now, I know you in the Carolinas are very familiar with pressure readings in the unit of millibar, and what it represents here is that the center of that low pressure matched many of our hurricanes, but this, of course, is not a hurricane. Back to that term bomb cyclone, though. That term was first coined in 1980 by kind of a famous atmospheric scientist named Fred Sanders. He was one of the pioneers in modeling the behavior of the Earth's atmosphere. And that just resets. Let's go back and look at it again. And so what it means, the definition of a bomb cyclone is a low pressure center that has a decrease in pressure at a rate of 1 millibar per hour, or 24 millibars in a day. And they're rare to have happen, and when they do, well, this particular one produced what we call the Pineapple Express of moisture that just targeted Northern California and caused a lot of problems there. Now, we're watching our own system develop today, in fact, two of them. So this is this morning, that's the sunrise line going there across the image here on Monday morning. And we got to keep an eye on this low pressure system that's here. That's the one that went over the Midwest. It's going to be bringing its frontal boundary through us tonight, and we're going to see some severe storms. And it's going to eventually meet up with a low that's forming here just off the coast. And this one is going to rapidly intensify and move up the East Coast, not probably reaching that bomb criteria, but still it's going to be relatively intense. Because by later on this afternoon, you can already see the strong winds circulating in that counterclockwise direction around it. It's being fed on the northern side by a ridge, a high pressure cell here that's going to be pushing very strong winds, very rough seas stretching from the coastal mid-Atlantic up into the northeast here. And we're going to get some precipitation to get in there. Now, before this system becomes the main story, we still have to contend with the system that's coming through Illinois and Indiana today, whose front, which is here, is going to make it over into Virginia and into North Carolina tonight. Late tonight is what it looks like. So the Storm Prediction Center this morning released this map, which shows that there's a slight risk. And by the way, that word slight, according to the Storm Prediction Center, means that there is a 15% or greater chance of seeing at least hail the size of an inch, or wind speeds exceeding 58 miles an hour, or a development of a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. Our greatest risk factor tonight is going to be straight line winds. I'm going to show you that. So what I'll do here is we're going to go to the high-res NAM model, and I'm going to get you through right about to when I was recording this, about 7 a.m. So as we play this forward, what I want you to see is here's our cyclone that's off the coast, okay? That's the low pressure center there. We will be seeing by late this afternoon the storms coming over the Appalachian Mountains. And as they do this, we're going to see them come right out here. Oh gosh, this is 10 o'clock your time, right there in the center part of North Carolina and Virginia. And so this is where the models are currently placing the risk of storm. So this could be late this afternoon, this evening, into the overnight hours as I kind of rock back and forth before we get to about midnight, right about there. So be aware that these storms are coming through and could produce some locally very heavy rainfall and strong straight line winds. Now after that, you can see the low curling up here, and it's going to be producing its heaviest rains north of North Carolina. And you can see that by Tuesday afternoon, it's really spinning here. Strong winds coming into the northeast and heavy rains. But we're going to get a bit of a break after that. So you can see that that low pressure system stays to our north, while we're going to get some northerly winds, some cooler weather. We're also going to get some cloud cover out of this. It'll move out by Wednesday. All right. The next system then takes shape in the midsection of the country. This is by Wednesday afternoon, and we're going to watch this one come over to us as well. But this low pressure system is going to get stuck. It's going to get kind of not cut off fully, but it's going to slow down as it gets over the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. And as a result of that, this is what our total rainfall is going to look like by the end of this upcoming week. So from now until next Sunday night, we're looking at total accumulated precipitation amounts here across North Carolina, according to the National Weather Service, that could range somewhere between 3/4 of an inch to some places getting over 2 inches of rainfall. So that would be a very wet end to what has otherwise been a drier month, when we compare this to average. So we're going to see when this precipitation is coming through. All right. To do that, though, I want to give you the bigger picture because I think this is what's most important here about this whole pattern. You see, this is the flow today, Monday morning, and we've seen deep troughs in the West Coast like this one here. You got to go all the way back to like mid-August. We've started to see this pattern evolve. It's then really intensified in October. And why it's been so blocked up, continuing to produce these deep troughs, is there's a large ridge that's been here from Greenland to the Hudson Bay. It's really more closely centered on the Hudson Bay. This is the pattern we've been kind of stagnated in for a while. And why I want to show you where this pattern is going before we get to the late week precipitation is that through Tuesday into Wednesday, the models just can't yet get rid of this. But watch what happens as we go past middle of this week and get out here toward Friday. Now at that point on Friday, we've got a cutoff low. It is going to be cut off, I believe. The main flow of the jet stream is going to try to stay to the north of it. And therefore, it's going to sit here over like the Tennessee Valley. Now, it appears at this point that as this comes through, yes, it brings some precip and some cooler weather. But the wettest conditions, I think, are going to be farther off to the east in this situation. I'll show you that in a few moments. So as we play this forward, look at what happens as I get through Saturday into Sunday and Monday of next week. Now, do you see the major difference? I think this is quite important. Early next week, our trough is shifted farther to the west. The ridge is now over the west. And there's a trough here, and look, lower heights, lower pressure troughs there. And this is as we begin the month of November. So we could see a pretty substantial shift in our pattern going into November. And as you could probably guess, this is going to keep us cooler as we get out there into the day 5 through 10 and 10 through 15 time period. So I think we're going to start to see ourselves shifting toward an entirely different November than we saw in the month of October. Now, how about that precip? So we've already talked about this system through Monday night. We know that we're going to go drier through, after Monday night into Tuesday and Wednesday. And our next system's taking shape right here. Now, as that one comes through, this is Thursday morning, Thursday midday, and Thursday evening. I'm going to be on the lookout here Thursday evening for the risk of some stronger storms. You see how broad this low pressure system is here? It's very large because the upper level trough sitting over it is not moving too quickly. So it's weakening at this time, but it is going to continue to move. And as we get out there toward Friday, just watch us. I'll kind of rock back and forth between Thursday and Friday. Just soggy weather is what we're seeing here at the end of this week. And then as we pull through Saturday and Sunday, it's going to take some time for those wetter conditions to kind of get out. So that gets us through the end of this week. And then you notice going into early next week, we don't see much going on here overall. The action kind of returns back to the plains. All right, put that all together. Let's zoom in on North Carolina here. And so here's the first system tonight. So some of those storms could put down an inch or two of rainfall. They could put down some heavy rainfall. And the latest model projections say that this is the region in through here that we need to be most kind of clued in on for the possibility of those strongest to most severe storms. But then we go dry through Tuesday, so see how we're not adding Tuesday into Wednesday. The next push comes in. There it is. There's Thursday into Friday. Now, as I just stop this out here, let's just go out 1 week. Okay, we see that using the model to depend on the exact amounts is going to be challenging because of the streaky nature of those storms. But generally speaking, we just notice that when they do come through, where they will hit, it'll be 3/4 of an inch to some places over 2 inches of precip total. Now, where does it go after that? Because we saw that deeper trough developing here by the end of this week. Well, let's just play it through, but look, a little bit different view here from the European ensemble. November the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Look at that. That's a really, well, the ridge is here now. There's a trough there. We haven't seen that in a long time. And the flow is going to come over and shoot out like this, which means in week 2, we're going to be on the convergent side of the trough rather than the divergent side of the trough. And just a quick lesson, the convergent side is the drier side. All right, the divergent side is the wetter side. So the week 2 precipitation pattern looks like this, meaning that as we do the first full week of November, we're going to favor drier conditions. Okay, so now that we've seen what this pattern is going to be doing for the next couple of weeks in terms of precip, let's now get our discussion going over to temperature. And before we look at that longer term, I want to give you at least what we've seen so far month to date. So this map shows you here so far through the month of October what our temperature ranks are. And really, if you're on the eastern side of the continental divide, we've been very warm, especially in the Great Lakes to the northeast and through the Midwest. Where are we sitting here in North Carolina? This is a top 10 warmest October so far. But you know it's going to get cooler toward the end of it and then to start November. So these numbers will back off. Let's go take a look at those temperatures. Why don't we start off with max temperatures first, okay? So today is a warm one, 76. And as we play into tomorrow, that's when the first shot at some cooler air comes in behind that front that's going to bring the storms tonight. So 65 in Raleigh tomorrow. So we go into Wednesday and then into Thursday. You notice we don't recover. We're going to stay over on the cooler side of things. After that, watch the end of the week deep trough settle in. Look at this, 50s for highs in this whole area here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, the Tennessee Valley back to the Mid-South. And as you can imagine, that comes to us this weekend. So a cool weekend on tap. In fact, interestingly enough, you in Raleigh and me over here in Champaign, we got about the same temperature on Saturday. Okay, as we go forward then into Sunday, it still remains cool. Now, will we have to worry about any risk of frost? Well, here's the minimum temperatures today, Monday, going into Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, you notice on Wednesday, we could get into the 40s here. And we do know that elevation dependence, I should say, on developing frost conditions, it's just something I'm going to be on the lookout for. This would be farther to the west and in the kind of the valleys. That's what we tend to look out for, or at higher elevation. So that's Wednesday's lows. And then Thursday, Friday, we do warm back up, okay? But remember, there's going to be a very small diurnal spread in temperatures at the end of the week. So our highs are not going to be too far away from our lows as we press into that pattern that develops that deeper trough over this area. You can see that better by just looking out here at the day 5 through 10 time period. You can tell where the cold air is coming from. Right? This is the latest European forecast for this. And I'll say this about the day 10 through 15. While the models continue to favor cooler conditions here, I actually think that the models right now out this far, this would be the November 4th, the week following November the 4th, I do think we're actually going to be a little bit colder than what's suggested here. Not much. It's not truly Arctic air or anything like that, but I think this can be a little bit more of a cool bias. I'll be watching that carefully. So what's got us here? I'm going to show you one of the main culprits. Throughout much of October, the MJO was here, over in phase 5-6. And then it's moved. It's now favoring phase 1-2. So you can just think of these as being opposite phases. And there's usually about a 10 to 15 day lag on when this shift happens to when we get the temperature pattern shift. And sure enough, we've been here for a while and it's going to start to show up in our temperature pattern. So that's part of it. The other part of it is this La Nina. Again, we talk about this every week, but I'm still very impressed with the strength of this La Nina and its expansiveness into the southern hemisphere and here coming up toward California. And then look, where that trough has been so far throughout much of the last, 60 days or so, we've really cooled off the North Pacific. And that's a signal that suggests that this La Nina is going to have a better shot at continuing to develop. Now, thinking about all of that, let's go ask ourselves what the month of November is going to look like. Because, to be honest, La Nina's correlation with our November weather is not that strong. It's much stronger December, January, February. But let's go have a look anyway. This is the latest update from the European weeklies, and I'll give a brand new update for those of you that are subscribed to my daily newsletter in tomorrow morning's update. But what you've got here is through the month of November, we do possibly favor drier conditions from Texas through the southeast and along the mid-Atlantic here. It does continue to suggest wetter conditions in the Midwest and parts of the northern plains. I'm not 100% sure that this pattern was well realized when it was released last week. We get these every 4 days, by the way. So when you get my report tomorrow morning, for those of you that are subscribed to it, and I'll give you the link at the end of this video, you're going to see an update to this map, and we're going to take a good look at that, because I don't think it's going to have the temperature pattern correct either. This was the 30-day outlook for November. I think it was biased too warm over that time period. So we'll talk about that in the newest update. I want to give you one last piece of information, though, and it's about South America. Planting progress has been very rapid in Brazil's biggest state, which is Mato Grosso here. Just so you know, you can fit about 4.5 North Carolinas inside of Mato Grosso. They're going to be wet there and over to Brazil's eastern growing areas. But to the south, even though they did have some rain that came through in the last 5 days here, much of the next week to 10 days is going to be very dry in southern Brazil, including, this is the state of Mato Grosso do Sul. This is Paraná, and that is Rio Grande do Sul. Big corn and soybean producing areas down here. And northeastern Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay are also quite dry. That's a pattern I'm going to be concerned about longer term in South America. And I'll keep you updated on what's going on there as we progress through our fall, their spring, and then get into our winter and their summer. All right. Have a good rest of your week, and I will talk to you next Monday. Thanks.